Right.
Will the Senate please come to order? Devotional exercises will be conducted by the Reverend Rick Swanson of St. John's in the Mountains Episcopal Church of Stowe. Welcome.
Lieutenant Governor, senators, guests, I invite you to stand as you are able. Gathered for the good of your people, O God, this Senate of the state of Vermont is charged this day to listen, to speak, and to act. Endue their hearts with a guiding wisdom that transcends their knowing, yet given by you. May what they speak be authentic to their lives, and may what they hear be received with grace. Guide their deliberations, and may their work provide hope for the citizens of this great state. Amen.
Are there any announcements? Seeing none, we have H472 and H401 under Rule 31 will be referred to the Committee on Finance. And we have H364 pursuant to temporary rule 44A, the following bill, I just said that, 364, failing to have met crossover and being released by the Committee on Rules, is referred to the Government Operations. We have a House bill for reference, H505, an act related to approval of the amendments of the Charter of the Town of Barre, passing the House on May 1st of 2025. Please listen to the reading of the bill.
H505, an act relating to approval of amendments to the Charter of the Town of Barre.
Now you've heard the reading of the bill, and it is referred to the Committee on Government. Oh, that one's, yes. Referred to the Committee on Rules. Wondered why I couldn't find my other part. Orders of the day. For request, we will be moving to the third readings. We have H41, an act relating to abuse of the dead body of a person. Are there any amendments prior to third reading? Listen to the third reading.
H41, an act relating to abuse of the dead body of a person.
Now you've heard the third reading of the bill, and the question is, shall the bill pass in concurrence with proposal of amendment? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you have passed H41. We now have H137, an act related to the regulation of insurance products and services. Are there any amendments prior to third reading? Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. There are no amendments that I know of, but I skipped over yesterday the 3 studies, and somebody asked me a question, and so I thought I should let you know what the studies are. One of them gets a lot of interest. The first one is studying circumstances under which a bank could impose a transaction hold on a transaction if the bank has reason to suspect the account holder might be the victim of fraud. The second one is remedies for victims of coerced debt. And the third one, which I was asked a question about, concerns genetic privacy. We do not allow insurance companies in this state to require genetic testing, to require you to reveal any of your genetic information.
Point of order, I apologize. I think we had a member on, oh, they've hung up their phone.
What is your point of order?
My point of order was there was a member using a device on the floor. They've hung up.
That's an interesting point of order, Senator from Windsor. Would you please continue, Senator from Washington?
Thank you. Anyway, we have very strict rules about insurance companies and genetic information. Recently, there are organizations out there that you freely send your genetic information to. So I can trace my ancestry. I can do all kinds of things with it. Recently, one of those is either in the process or has talked about going into bankruptcy. And this question will deal with what happens to that genetic information. It'll probably be more specific to Vermont. And theoretically, an insurance company could go in and buy that up. And so they aren't requiring you and they aren't coercing you, but they get your genetic information, which we would not allow them to get otherwise. So this study will look at the best way to deal with that situation here in Vermont.
Are there any amendments prior to third reading? Listen to the third reading of the bill.
H 137, an act relating to the regulation of insurance products and services.
The question is, shall the bill pass in concurrence with proposal of amendment? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we have passed. 137. We now have H219, an act relating to establishment of the Department of Corrections Family Support Program. Are there any amendments prior to third reading? Listen to the third reading.
H 219, an act relating to establishing the Department of Corrections Family Support Program.
The question is, shall the bill pass in concurrence? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we've passed H219. Sounded vaguely like a phone ringer. We've been having some phone problems the last couple days. Senators. Senator Hart, you might want to learn to mute your end of the Zoom. Let's see, where are we now? We're on SR 12, Senate Resolution reaffirming the friendship between the state of Vermont and Taiwan and supporting enhanced Vermont-Taiwan bilateral relations and Taiwan's participation in international organizations. Are there any amendments prior to third reading? Please listen to the third reading.
SR 12, Senate Resolution reaffirming the friendship between the state of Vermont and Taiwan and supporting enhanced Vermont-Taiwan bilateral relations and Taiwan's participation in international organizations.
Question is, shall the resolution pass? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it, and we've passed SR 12. Yes. Oh, Senator from Chittenden.
Mr. President, did we pass over H219?
H219, no.
Oh, I got distracted with a telephone. Okay. We both got. Thanks.
Are you saying you were on your cell phone, Senator? What? I'll take this moment to remind senators that it is not appropriate to use your phone on the floor or while we are in session for those on Zoom. Thank you. We will now move to H98. An act relating to confirmatory adoptions. Let's see. We have on the calendar for action H98, which was passed by the House on January 10th, 2025. It was referred to the Committee on Judiciary, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that the Senate propose to the House that the bill be amended as it appears starting on page 1161 of today's calendar, and that with such proposal of amendment, the bill ought to pass. Listen to the second reading of the bill.
H98, an act relating to confirmatory adoptions.
I recognize the senator from Wyndham's, Senator Hashim, for the report of the Committee on Judiciary.
Thank you. Mr. President, this is a rather lengthy bill. And before I get into the walkthrough, I do want to provide just a general synopsis so that senators will be able to see how all the different provisions connect to the bigger picture. And I believe that the as passed by the House version is being handed out. It will be much more helpful to refer to what is in the calendar on page 1161 because we attached another bill to H98. So H98 consists of two substantive policy changes. The first part addresses confirmatory adoptions, and the second part addresses standby guardianships. The Senate Judiciary Committee agreed to add a Senate Bill S95 onto H98 when this bill came from the other body. The underlying goal and intent of the first part, the confirmatory adoptions, is to strengthen parental rights when traveling outside of Vermont for parents who conceive through assisted reproduction. The second part creates the ability to enter into a standby guardianship for children whose parents are subject to adverse immigration proceedings. These two policies were combined into one bill because they either establish or modify existing policies for probate hearings involving parents and their kids. And just a quick note before I start moving through the bill. I've come to realize over the years that just about every job I've held in my adult life has to some extent involved being in a position where I either had to tell or advise someone that something can't or shouldn't happen. And in the last couple of months, that's become more apparent in this job as well. And what I mean by that is it's obviously been no secret lately that issues related to immigration are getting discussed more frequently and typically accompanied with some degree of tension or disagreement. And it's been particularly challenging for me to tell people, legislators included, that there are many, many things we cannot do as a result of constitutional constraints. But that doesn't mean there's nothing we can do. And part of that involves, at a minimum, mitigating the harm caused to families when they're subjected to adverse immigration proceedings by the federal government. Now, I am jumping ahead because the standby guardianships are coming up in a few moments, but I did just want to get that out of the way. So moving on, the first part of the bill establishes a confirmatory adoption process for parents who conceive the child through assisted reproduction and who are already legally recognized parents under Vermont law. This provides greater protection for parental rights when traveling outside of Vermont because judgments issued by a court must be recognized by other states. However, other states do not necessarily need to recognize our laws. And the reason for that is due to the full faith and credit clause of the U.S. Constitution, which generally requires states to give full recognition to the laws and judgments of other states. So for example, that's why if you have a Vermont driver's license, you can also drive in Massachusetts. Or if you get a DUI in Vermont and your Vermont license gets suspended and you get pulled over in Massachusetts, law enforcement can write you a ticket for the suspension and tow your car. This is because Massachusetts is recognizing the DUI conviction and the suspension judgment from Vermont. The purpose of this is to prevent conflict between states and to ensure that judgments are dependable across the country. However, in certain circumstances, a state may choose not to recognize the law of another state if it's against its own public policy. But this exception does not apply to legal judgments or court orders. Therefore, an adoption decree issued by a Vermont court offers greater legal protection outside of Vermont than afforded by Vermont statutes. And this has been affirmed by 2016 U.S. Supreme Court case VL versus EL, which held that states must recognize a judicial adoption order issued by the court of another state that had proper jurisdiction when the order was issued. So why do we need this? The underlying reason to protect parents' rights when they're visiting another state or moving to another state that may not recognize their marriage and parentage. Even though their marriage and parentage may be lawfully recognized in Vermont, other states may choose to deny recognition and thus deny a parent's ability to act or choose for their child. Section 1 of the bill adds a new section to Vermont's adoption title, Title 15A, which establishes an expedited process for these hearings. Because the petitioners who would use this section are already legal parents of the child under Vermont law and are living with and caring for that child, the extensive process for adoption of a legal stranger is not required. So in summary, Section 1 contains provisions that establish what information must be contained in a petition for a confirmatory adoption. It allows discretion for the court to require an in-person hearing and provides guidance as to what may happen based on whether the parents are married or not. Section 2 of the bill provides various definitions for terms used in both the confirmatory adoptions and standby guardianship parts of the bill. The most substantive addition is the term adverse immigration proceeding. This subdivision provides 6 different situations in which a custodial parent could be rendered unavailable to care for their child due to either deportation, detention, or denial of entry. And I also want to note that the current practice in Vermont is to place a child into DCF custody if their parents are subject to an adverse immigration proceeding, rather than placing them into the care of a trusted friend or family member. Section 3 begins by amending Title 14 VSA 2623 to differentiate between whether a petition is for a regular guardianship or a standby guardianship, and whether it is an emergency situation. This section establishes requirements for information to be included in the petition, such as the proposed guardian's relationship to the child, names of other household members, why the guardianship is being sought, and several other important factors that the court shall take into consideration when determining whether or not to grant a guardianship. This section also requires notice of service to all parties involved, although there are exceptions. The court may waive notice requirements if the identity or location of the parent is unknown, if the parent is detained as a result of an adverse immigration action, or if no contact can be made with the parents after reasonable efforts have been made. If the factors involved in this exception change, the court must reopen the proceeding at the request of a parent of the child who did not receive notice. Section 4 concerns the hearing that must be held before a guardianship petition is granted. Under current law, subsection F permits the court to delay a hearing until after an emergency petition is filed if the parents are unavailable because they are medically incapacitated or deceased. This bill permits the courts to also delay the hearing for a standby guardianship if the custodial parent has been subject to an adverse immigration action that renders the parent unavailable to care for the child. Section 5 describes the procedures for obtaining a standby guardianship. The custodial parent and the proposed guardian can sign the petition and other required forms in advance so that the guardian or the parent's attorney can retain the signed forms and only file them with the court if the parent is subject to an adverse immigration action. Subsections A through F, in summary, provide rules related to submitting consent forms by the custodial parent, the numerous requirements that must be agreed to between parents and potential guardians, the manner in which the Vermont rules of evidence shall apply, the threshold of evidence needed to grant a petition, a rebuttable presumption that the guardianship is in the best interests of the child, so long as certain factors are established, and the required timelines for both holding a hearing and issuing a guardianship if granted. Section 6 adds standby guardianships to the list of guardianship orders that may be issued by the probate division. The order must include provisions addressing the guardian's power and duties, the expected duration of the guardianship, if it's known, a family plan consistent with the parties' agreement, and the process for reviewing the order. If a standby guardianship is granted, it's generally common for the custodial parent to be detained in a federal facility or relocated outside the country. For that reason, Section 7 permits the guardian to provide status reports to the custodial parent at the parent's last known email address, since contacting the parent by regular mail may not be feasible. Additionally, because the parent's location may limit their ability to meet court procedural requirements, Section 8 permits the parent to appear remotely at continuation hearings and permits the court to waive formatting and signing requirements for good cause shown in proceedings to terminate the guardianship. Section 9 provides that the confirmatory adoption proceedings section of H98 takes effect on July 1, 2025, and that the standby guardianship sections take effect on passage. We heard from Legislative Counsel, the Director of Family Advocacy from GLAAD, the Director of the Vermont Asylum Assistance Program, an attorney from Vermont Legal Aid, and the Chief Superior Judge. The vote in committee was 5-0-0, and I ask for Senate support.
The question is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Judiciary? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've proposed to the House to amend the bill as proposed by the Committee on Judiciary. The question is now, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've ordered third reading of H98. We have on the calendar for action H494, which was passed by the House April 5th, 2025. It was referred to the Committee on Institutions, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that the Senate propose to the House that the bill be amended as it appears starting on page 1172 of today's calendar, and that with such proposal of amendment, the bill ought to pass. Affecting the revenues of the state, the bill was referred to the Committee on Finance, which recommends that the bill ought to pass. In fact, affecting the appropriations of the state, the bill was referred to the Committee on Appropriations, which recommends that the bill ought to pass in concurrence with the proposal of amendment as recommended by the Committee on Institutions. Listen to the second reading of the bill.
H494, an act relating to capital construction and state bonding.
I recognize the senator from Windham, Senator Harrison, for the report of the Committee on Institutions.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I am, the way we're going to present the capital bill is that we will all speak to the bill as introduced by the House and including the amendment recommended by the Institutions Committee. I will provide an introduction, and then we will, the rest of the members of the committee will go over the sections, and then I will come back and talk about cash versus bonded. So the capital bill is a 2-year bill to fund capital projects, and a committee called the Capital Debt Affordability Advisory Committee meets before the session and determines a recommended amount that the state can use for bonding. And that amount in this biennium was $100 million over the 2-year timeframe of the capital bill. The treasurer manages the bonded dollars and goes out to bond. Those are general obligation bonds. And you'll hear us talk a lot about bonded dollars versus cash. And the reason for that is because a new cash fund, relatively new, was established in 2022. And the goal of that fund was to use cash to reduce the general obligation debt and to pay for certain types of projects like planning and engineering projects. So you're all looking at the spreadsheet, so let's go to the spreadsheet. There is language that goes with this bill, and that is in your bulletin today which was referenced, but we'll focus on the spreadsheet. So you'll see there are 3 main columns. There's a gray column and a burgundy column and a green column. So the gray portion of the bill, that is as recommended by the administration. The red section is what the House changed or continued, and the green is the Senate, of course. So the highlighted areas are what we're going to focus on, but you can obviously ask questions on any of the areas that are not highlighted. So the sections are by the agency who would administer whatever the project is. And the highlighted bright yellow, those are the ones we're going to focus on the most. Those are the areas where our committee, where the Senate committee had a different opinion and a different recommendation from the House or the governor. I think that's enough. Oh, actually, one other thing on the spreadsheet. Again, with cash and bonding, the cash is technically a separate section of the bill. It's section 19. So you'll see a column for the cash fund in the spreadsheet, but in the policy document, you won't see the cash until the end. But JFO, and I totally agree with them, thought that it was easier to see it this way. So I'm just going to go over the subsections so that everybody understands. So there's FY26. You see there's two columns on FY26, bonded and cash. And then there's an FY27 bonded because we don't know yet what will be the amount in cash. And the way the process works is when this gets approved today, you're approving the expenditures for FY26. And then in the next, when we come back in January, our committee will work again on refining the FY27 numbers. Okay? I think we're good. So I would like to yield to the senator from Windsor, who will take you through section 2 and section 3.
The senator from Wyndham yields to the senator from Windsor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Section 2, Agency of Administration of Building and General Services. There is a total reduction of $700,000 from the governor and House recommends for FY27 appropriation of bonded dollars for the following projects. Section 2B2 and Section 2C4, the 3-acre parcel stormwater compliance. We had a reduction of $400,000 from the House, and then an additional $250,000 from the House, which would total from the governor's recommend. That's why you see from the governor's recommend a total of $1.5 million in bonded dollars in 2027 and $850,000 in our recommend. Section 2C6, the Pittsford Academy firing range upgrade elimination of $250,000. We decided not to do that in 2026. And also in section 2C10, the 32 Cherry Street parking garage in Burlington, a reduction of $250,000. The reason these are done is more for the Commissioner of Building and Grounds, arranging her money to pay for some things this year as opposed to next year. And one of the reasons for that, you'll find out in section 13, which in actuality is to pay for this year the White River Junction Courthouse. And section 3, which is Agency of Human Services, there is no highlighted portion, and it will go as is. I'd like to yield to the senator from Bennington next.
The senator from Windsor yields to the senator from Bennington.
And thank you, Mr. President. I will be going over sections 4, 5, and 6. Section 4 being commerce and community development. Section 5 being building communities grants, and section 6 the Vermont Veterans Home. And if you look at your spreadsheet, you'll see a whole lot of yellow here. And just to remind everybody, the bright yellow is the changes recommended by Senate institutions. They're different from the House recommendations. It's not as extreme as it seems, but I'll go over that in a moment. So starting with section 4 and looking at line 31, well, lines 31 and 32, this is where the governor's recommendation, the House and the Senate Institutions Committee, we all agreed on this. So major maintenance at statewide historic sites is exactly what it sounds like. Major maintenance at the 82 historic sites throughout Vermont. And the Vermont Underwater Historic Preserves, which I didn't know this because I'm from Bennington, but there are 11 shipwrecks in Lake Champlain. So this is money to both preserve those and also to promote those. So it also is part of the marketing and tourism aspect. So lines 33 through 35. So these are the 3 housing projects that were recommended by the governor. And what you see here is that the governor recommended it. The House had moved this essentially into the big bill. And the Senate Institutions Committee recommends putting it back into the capital bill, although paying it with cash rather than bonded dollars, which gives some benefits in terms of not having to bond out these particular projects. They are all public-private projects in each of the different locations. So starting off with the Bennington High School, it's $1.1 million. This is a redevelopment of a historic school in Bennington. It was my mother's high school. It was my junior high. It's been empty for approximately 20 years, and I prosecuted the man that's ripped all the copper out of it. So that was an interesting thing. So regarding this, it's a pretty major redevelopment project that involves redevelopment of historic preservation, flood mitigation in that area, some flood resiliency in that area. It's going to have 17 perpetual affordable units, 3 of those specifically for those experiencing homelessness. There are 22 that they're described as workforce units. And those are restricted. They'll be restricted for some 20 years. There's going to be a senior center. There's going to be childcare in there, 102 slots. There's a community gym, meeting areas, Meals on Wheels we're hoping will be in there. So that's what that project entails. The next one, the Berry Prospect Heights Housing Infrastructure Project. This is new construction on 37 acres in Berry, which the project was initially envisioned in 1991. They were looking to build, I forget the total number of units, and I think it was 128, but now it's reduced to 79 units. They have to go through a permitting process again, and there it'll be mixed unit types of those 79 units. And the third one is in Brattleboro. It's called the Village at Winston Prouty. So phase 1 of this is ready to go. They're going to be hopefully be done by, I think it's the end of this year, or they're at least going to start this year. And that's the phase 1 is a 22-unit apartment building. They're eventually looking at the project to be 300 units total. Oh yeah, the goal is to complete phase 1 of that by the end of the year. So moving on to line 36. Roadside historic markers. This was added by the House, and what we learned was that, and I've never seen these historic markers on the side of the road. They're big, they're iron, and they describe some sort of historic significance of that area. There are literally a number of those signs that are at the foundry. So instead of not appropriating anything for that, we agreed with the House to have the total of $50,000 for the 2 years. And moving to line 37, this is regarding the Bennington Battle Monument. What I could go on and on about the Bennington Battle Monument. I will keep it short that essentially the Bennington Battle Monument has not been maintained for quite some time, has some major restoration that needs to be done. What this does is it essentially starts phase 1A of that project, and it does so by reallocating money that had already been appropriated for safety fencing that had been necessary to put around the monument because pieces of mortar from failed restoration projects in the past have been falling down. Turned out the fencing project didn't cost as much, so there was some $419,000 remaining. In the reallocation section, you'll see that's reallocated to this project. And the Senate Institutions Committee is recommending $425,000. This is not enough for phase 1A. $500,000 is needed. The House had recommended more than that, but as the senator from Windsor mentioned, there was another project that we learned needed all of the money immediately on fiscal year 26. So we did have to go through some projects, but this will get that started, and we know that the fence has been fixed now, so they don't need the additional money for that. And moving to line 38. This is one of the projects that's added just by the Senate Institutions Committee. It's $100,000 to the Department of Housing and Community Development for the Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission for a site study for development for parking, housing, flood mitigation of what I now have learned is called the pit, which is where my car is. Well, actually, I didn't park there today. But apparently this has been in conversation for quite some time. It's a study between State Street and Court Street. In line 39, also added by the Senate Institutions Committee, $250,000, the Department of Housing and Community Development. This is to help Hope River Recovery purchase a 5-bed women's recovery house in St. Albans. And so the total that the Senate Institutions Committee is recommending for fiscal year 26 and 27 is the total number $5,117,000 for in bonded and cash dollars in the capital bill. So moving on to section 5, this is building community grants, 7 grants of generally smaller projects, all in different areas. So Historic Preservation Grant Program, Historic Barn Preservation Grant Program, Cultural Facilities Grant Program, Recreational Facilities Grant Program, Human Services and Education Facilities Competitive Grant Program, Regional Economic Development Grant Program, and also the Agricultural Fair and Field Days Capital Projects Competitive Grant Program. So here, the Senate recommendation is for fiscal year 26, primarily lower than the House recommendation, but more or less in line with the governor's recommendation, except for one of those grant programs, and that's the Agricultural Fair and Field Days. And the reason for that discrepancy is essentially we know where the money is going for the fairs. It's a limited pool of applicants for that. With the other grant programs, it's a number of different applicants. We don't know of any that are relying on getting the grant right now. And so that reduction there seemed more appropriate, but we are keeping it at the increase overall for fiscal year 27 and an increase overall from the governor's recommendation for a total of $3,900,000. And section 6, that's the Vermont Veterans Home. And lines 57 and 58. So these are 2 projects that one essentially has to be done, phase out of R22 refrigerant, which I can't get into, but we heard much about. It's replacing air handlers in the Vermont Veterans Home. And they're replacing those with heat pumps, removing the refrigerant that's not needed. And also expansion, and actually it's a rebuilding of the laundry facilities for the Veterans Home. So the total that was in the government governor's recommendation for that was $730,000 for the air handler replacement, $420,000 for the laundry facilities. The House reduced that, and we agreed with that reduction in part because the Veterans Home said they were able to find a lower estimate for the laundry facilities. But what we do have there is language in the bill so that the Vermont Veterans Home can essentially use both pools of money for both projects as is needed as it goes along. In line 59, the larger amount of $1.5 million for construction, it's design and construction for the renovation of the American unit. So there are a number of different wings in the Veterans Home. Last year's capital bill had appropriated $1.5 million for B and C wing. The Veterans Home realized that the A wing needs to be completely reconstructed, and that was their priority. This is a reallocation, and you'll see that in the reallocation section of that, all to be used for the American unit. And the Senate Institution's recommendation for the total for the Vermont Veterans Home is $2,550,000. And with that, I will yield to the senator from Essex.
The senator from Bennington yields to the senator from Essex.
I thank the senator from Bennington, and thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to report on sections 7, 8, and 9. Section 7, it's construction, renovation, and major maintenance for UVM. Historically, we've been always around this amount for 2026 and 2027. We're looking at $1.5 million each for a total of $3 million for UVM for major maintenance. Moving on to section 8, Vermont State Colleges. Lines on your spreadsheet, line 69, statewide construction, renovations, and major maintenance. We've agreed with the governor and the House of a total of $3 million for that. This didn't change any at all. Then we get to the Johnson State College Central Heating Plant. We've all agreed as far as on that, $1.5 million for 2026, and then to finish the project in 2027 of $3.5 million for a total of $5 million. I just want to make a note on that as far as that project. The project will include efficiency improvements like boiler, fuel, and burner controls, condensation makeup chemical controls, installation upgrades, as well as upgrades converting pneumatic to digital operating systems. These upgrades are intended to achieve an energy reduction of 10%. This is a strategic investment to ensure that the aging infrastructure can continue to serve the campus while reducing heating expenditures and fossil fuel consumption. This is a physically conservative approach, as a full-scale conversion to renewables would increase the value of the work by a minimum of 400%. So as much as they would have liked to have gone to renewable, it wasn't in the budget for them to do that. And so, as I said, they're being fiscal responsible for that project. That section is a total of $8 million. And again, the governor and the House and the Senate all concurred with that. Moving on to section 9. We got a 20% match of federal grants for drinking water. It's for $590,000. The $590,000 of state match is a 5-to-1 match provided through the capital bill, and will enable ANR to draw down $2.95 million of federal drinking water capitalization grant funds. The grant funds are used primarily to provide low-interest loans for improvements to municipal and certain privately owned public water systems. The agency is seeing record levels of demand for these funds. A portion of the federal dollars will be used to pay for agency operating costs, for technical assistance, and regulatory oversight of public water systems. Moving on to the next line of line 76, the dam safety and hydrology projects. We've got $500,000 in each year, 26 and 27. The Agency of Natural Resources owns approximately 100 dams and recently completed an initial risk assessment of a subset of these dams, which pose the greatest safety risk to the public. FY26 and FY27 funds will be used for a comprehensive assessment and final design of the Kent Palm Dam classified as a significant hazard potential dam located in Killington and owned by the Department of Fish and Wildlife, as well as the Lowell Lake Dam, classified as a highly hazard potential dam located in Londonderry and owned by the Department of Forest, Parks, and Recreation. Any remaining funds available will be used for the planning and development of future high-priority dam projects. Moving to the next line of 77, we have $3.5 million in 2026 and $2.5 million in 2027 for a total of $6 million. The appropriation supports a variety of projects integral to maintaining safe and efficient operations at Vermont parks and properties owned by the Departments of Forest, Park, and Recreation. Projects include major maintenance across parks facilities, wastewater systems, maintenance and upgrades, large-scale infrastructure improvement projects, and compliance with Vermont's 3-acre rule. Moving on to the next line of line 78, we got the Forest Parks and Recreation, Public Lands Access Infrastructure for $700,000 in 2026 and $700,000 in 2027 for a total of $1.4 million. The appropriation targets the infrastructure and asset improvements within the forest and parks systems aimed at supporting open access to recreational opportunities for all users. Examples include durable upgrades to high-use trail systems, access roads, and investments to historic recreational infrastructure. The investments supported by this appropriation help to grow Vermont's outdoor economy, often in more rural areas of the state, preserve cultural heritage, and advance environmental conservation priorities. Moving on to the next line, we have Forest Park and Recreation. It needs to buy a fire apparatus. We have chosen to do that in cash because most of these projects need to be have a life of 20 years or more. A fire truck could probably do that, but it was probably better to do it in cash because it gives everybody more flexibility. And in case you're asking why they would be needing a fire truck, we have a note on that. Wildlife risk in the Northeast has been increasing, and over 15,000 acres have already burned in the fires in New Jersey. Forest Parks and Recreation does not currently have a wildland fire truck, and Vermont is the only state operating without one. During the fall fire season, we were fortunate that New Hampshire was available to assist us with their truck when we needed it. However, we can't rely on our compact partners with the kinds of fire seasons we've had in recent years. 2024 saw 96 fires in Vermont, a significant bump over previous years, and the Northeast is facing a real challenge adapting to the rapidly increasing risk. Forest Parks and Recreation has been building its capacity to respond to wildland fires and has been pursuing alternative funding sources for a truck, which is why this wasn't in the governor's recommended budget. Those sources have now been exhausted. We do have staff qualified to operate the engine We do have staff qualified to operate the engines as we send staff to provide support and gain wildland firefighting experience in other states in Canada. Moving on to line 80, Fish and Wildlife major maintenance and infrastructure projects. We have $1.1 million and $1.15,000, and then $1.29360 for a total of $2.134 million. And that one is the appropriations support a variety of small and large scale infrastructure projects across the portfolio of assets owned and managed by the Department of Fish and Wildlife. Examples include maintenance and infrastructure upgrades to wildlife management areas and fishing access areas, upgrades to Department of Fish and Wildlife owned dams, investments in the state's 2-year conservation camps, and the state fish culture stations. Then we are going down to line 81, which is the Lake Champlain Walleye Association for $25,000 for 2026. We have historically given the Walleye Group funds since I've been here, and For anybody that doesn't know, this group has single-handedly restored the walleye population, not only in Lake Champlain, but other outlying areas. They started this fish culture, and they are actually the envy of the whole United States. They have, not only are their people almost always trying to be poached by other states, they actually have other states come in and find out what they're doing to support this population. And what they're able to do is when most states are only able to raise fish to a certain level, they've developed a way to raise these walleyes so that when they release them into the natural environment, that they're not that silver color that look like a lure. They actually have their own natural coloring, and so their survival rate is unbelievably high. In fact, it is right now, the walleyes, they have a way of marking these fish with a dye. And they can tell right now that if it wasn't for them, the state walleye population would probably be as decimated to be almost extinct. And so they're single-handedly restoring the fishery. That is a great value to the state of Vermont. So pretty amazing on what they're doing for a small amount of money. This year we found them $25,000. We'll see what we can do for them in 2027. So we think it's a very worthy cause, which we get in cash again, because even though that the tanks that they're buying probably do have a 20-year life, which is what the capital bill kind of sets its premise on, we thought that cash being used wisely would work well for them. And it is being used to buy the infrastructure. That completes my sections of the capital bill, and we appreciate everybody's listening today. And I'm going to punt over to our chair of our committee, Senator Harrison.
Senator from Essex yields to the senator from Wyndham.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator. And it's hard to follow the walleye because it really is an impressive operation. I'm going to go over this, in this instance, just section 10, the clean water section. This is how the state supports not only water, but also housing. I just wanted to make that clear for folks. So on line 87, that is funding that is provided to the Agency of Agriculture, and that is funding for farmers to address their water quality challenges. And so there's $3 million in that. That was the governor's recommend. You can see it follows all across. Section 89, which goes to A&R, if you're looking closely, there is not funding this year, but don't despair. The programs are still continuing. There was carryover funding. So that the Clean Water State Revolving Fund is really critical for our municipalities to afford new plants and upgrade plants. So that's a carryover. Next one is line 90, which is municipal pollution control grants, and those are particularly necessary for housing development. If we're following the Act 250 updates that we did, much of development reasonably requires sometimes both water and sewer, and sometimes one or the other, but that's critical for housing. The funding on line 92 also goes to A&R, but to a different division, and that's forestry access road water quality improvements. And those are for best management practices on A&R roads. There's 200,000 in that. And those of us who are on institutions committee and probably other committees know about how challenging it is to keep those roads, mostly dirt roads, in repair. So then VHCB is also funded in this section. You see the first one is agricultural water quality projects. That's 800,000. And those are more typically for farmers to handle manure and that kind of thing, more specific projects. So there's quite a good amount of funding for agriculture. And then also under VHCB, line 95 is land conservation and water quality projects. And those, $2 million for that, and those are for particularly special locations, like areas with forest, very high elevation forest, and headwaters of streams. So that's where the conservation aspect comes in. And so that is the FY26 amount in section 10, but note that the total is $10 million. And in 27, it's still $10 million, but there's no allocation to the individual programs, and that's what we do every year. And A&R gives us a recommendation on which programs. Actually, I'm sorry, it's not A&R, it's the Clean Water Board. That's the group who recommends where the funding goes. So now I will yield to the senator from Windsor, who will do section 11.
Senator from Wyndham yields to the senator from Windsor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Section 11 is our military, and on line 101, major maintenance for renovations and ADA compliance at all of our state armories. Basically, this is making sure that we are ADA compliant within all of our armories. We have allotted $1,272,838 in bonded this year for that, and $1,310,167 in bonded for 2027. And line 102 is the planning and design for the renovation of the Northwest Regional Readiness Center. We have in 2026 bonded $1.343333 million, and in 2027 we is nothing, because we have hopefully have completed the planning and design, and we'll have started that project. And with that, I yield to the senator from Orleans.
The senator from Windsor yields to the senator from Orleans.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thank the senator from Windsor. I'll apologize. I have a slight headache, so bear with me, but I thank the senator from Chittenden Central for the medications, and they're working very well. All right, so you have me for section 12 through 16. So you'll be dealing with agriculture, police stations, the courthouses, fire departments, and Vermont Historical Society. So for the renovations on line 107 to the Big E. So the Big E, if you're not aware, that's in West Springfield, Massachusetts, and we handle the Vermont building. All the states in the Northeast, they have a building at the Big E, which is the 5th largest fair in the country, and each state maintains their own building, and it allows them to exhibit and showcase products and businesses from their state, primarily with an agricultural focus. So in the Vermont building, right now, I believe we have Ben & Jerry's, a couple of the breweries, Cabot Cheese, of course, Vermont Clothing Company, and others. And they bring in a lot of people. We have 1.5 million people annually. So a lot of people go through their doors, and every year they have a very competitive bid process to have all good. To have existing vendors come back and have new ones come in. It's a very competitive bidding process. So right now, they have some issues. The building itself is in a bit of disrepair. It's an older building, so the slate roof needs some repairs. The exterior needs repairs. They're currently not ADA compliant, and so they're putting in some new bathrooms and fixing up the kitchenette. Right now, one of the bathroom that they have is upstairs, but the stairs aren't in great condition, and the flooring upstairs isn't in great condition either. So if you're an older person, you're one of the vendors, then you have to go all the way upstairs to go use the bathroom, which doesn't really work. So they actually have to walk down the way to go use a restroom. So they're putting in a restroom on the bottom floor, and they're updating some of the plumbing and the electrical as well. So that's a great program if you're ever going to Massachusetts. Definitely check out the Big E, or I believe it's during the summertime. So the next line here, so that's 108. That is the Randolph, Vermont State University Agriculture and Environmental Lab. They are trying to fix up the heat plant situation They currently run off of 3 steam boilers from Vermont State University, but during the summer, when they don't have students, they are having to rely on other heat, and it's made it more difficult to operate. So they're looking to get, oh boy, where's the number here? I apologize. Here we go. Yep, looking for a $3.5 million appropriation for upgrades to the heating system. And that's going to have the BGS, which is the Department of Building and General Services, negotiate with the university for the maintenance of the summer boilers and update the memorandum of understanding between the lab, which is run by the state, and then the state university itself. This grants a lot more flexibility to BGS to transfer unexpected project balances between the project and then the FY25 appropriation of $1.5 million for the construction of the heat plant itself. Now moving on to the Veterans Home Incubator Farm. So we made a little bit of a joke during our committee that we're not incubating the veterans themselves. This is kind of a pilot project to expand a farm essentially for the veterans home so they can grow their own local produce, so they can get hands-on skills. And as a mental health clinician, I can also see the benefits from a mental health perspective. So right here, I'll read off what we got sent to the committee. So it's a 2-year initiative designed to establish a veteran-led cooperative farming model on 12 acres of leased land at the Vermont Veterans Home. The program seeks to empower veterans by providing hands-on agricultural training, fostering market connections, and supporting their transition to independent farming while contributing to the local food system. It's a 3-year phase approach, and it aims to equip veterans with the tools, resources, and market connections necessary for sustainable farming success. It's a good program. They came and they spoke to us about it, and you'll see that that was not in the governor's recommend or the House recommend. We added it on because they came in, they discussed it with us, and we viewed it was a valuable project for the amount of money that they're asking for, which is actually a very small portion of their budget because it's actually just matching funds. So, all right, I will move on to the next section here. So this is the Department of Public Safety for the Rutland Field Station. The Rutland Field Station is near the end of its feasible life. So they're looking to get some more funding to be able to renovate it. They're looking for $4 million over the course of the 2 years, both in bonded. And you'll see here that we actually agreed with the House. It was not originally in the governor's recommend, and we agreed with the House and made no changes to that. For the Shaftesbury Field Station, again, we did not make any changes from the House. We made no changes from the governor. For $150,000 in FY27, that's bonded. It provides primary police coverage throughout Bennington County, a portion of Windham County, and assistance as requested to the Bennington, Winhall, and Manchester Police Departments. And it is also nearing the end of its servable life. I'll move on to section 14, which is the judiciary. We really enjoyed having the judiciary come in because they brought us chocolate chip cookies. It's always a great thing to bring to try to get some more money appropriated to your department. So we always appreciate them coming in. And I wonder if they do the same thing for Senate Judiciary. So I don't know. We'll see. All right, the Woodstock Courthouse. So currently has they're looking for $100,000 for the purchase installation of a power backup. That was in the governor's recommend. The House did not do anything to it, and neither did we. It currently has a 3-phase battery backup system that has capacity to provide emergency lighting only for several hours in the event of a power outage. So they're looking to upgrade this system to have a better power backup. For the Essex Courthouse, so this is a wonderful project, and the senator from Essex was able to give us even more information than the judiciary did because this is in his district. And what it does is it provides kind of a connector behind the existing courthouse I believe the police station right next door to it. And it allows them to connect the buildings and while also not affecting the frontage of the buildings itself. So it's from the front, doesn't really look like there's anything different, especially because of some of the trees that they planted. But from overhead, there's a ton added to the back. And it allows a lot more of the defendants being able to not have to interact with the jury, not interact with the plaintiffs, and it allows them to separate the different groups. I put forward that we nicknamed it the Vince Aluzzi Clubhouse. And I don't know where that's going to go, but I'm still very bullish on that proposal. I'll move on to the Newport Courthouse. So this right here, the governor did give, looks like $1 million, and the House, memory serves, maintained it. Actually, no, that's right. They took it out, and we concurred because the Newport Courthouse has kind of been put on a hold right now. They were looking for some land, and they decided that they're going to continue looking for the land, but the project's kind of been put on hold because there isn't really a great spot for it. And right now, locally, we're trying to look at ways of renovating the building itself that's existing, partially because the community wants to keep the building the way it is, and partially because there's just, again, really no land available that's going to work for the purpose. So, moving on to Lamoille County Courthouse. So they are looking for $190,000, which was not in the governor's recommend. The House put it in, and then we concurred with it. It's to install a generator in the courthouse to support continuous operations during power outages. The courthouse was built in 1912 in Hyde Park, and it was modernized and underwent significant renovations in 2016. So they're looking to add a backup power system. White River Junction Courthouse. So you will remember, hopefully, from the senator from Bennington and the senator from Windsor made reference to various projects that they had during their sections that money was reallocated out of them. I believe the Bennington Battle Monument was one of them. The Pittsburgh Firing Academy was another one. We spent a good hour and a half, I think it was, in committee feverishly trying to find different sections of the Capitol bill to pull funding and to reallocate it towards the White River Junction Courthouse because they needed to have the money in FY26 that you'll see that was not in the governor's recommend or in the House recommend. So we took a little bit of money out of the, you'll see there in the burgundy section in the center, you'll see $8 million for FY26 that the House recommended. We took some of that money and we put it into the 1.1 million that you'll see in column L, which is in the green section, our section, as well as the extra allocated funds from the Pittsburgh Firing Academy, Bennington Battle Monument, and other places. They needed the money in FY26, so we went around, we found it, we went and we spoke to BGS, the commissioner was with us and was able to identify several projects that her department could live without. So that's where that money went from and to. So we'll move on to the Vermont Rural Fire Protection. They are installing dry hydrants across the state, and I have some information for all of you about where they're located. So since 1998 up to 2024, 235 towns were awarded one or more dry hydrants. That's 1,039 grants around the state, primarily for dry hydrants. And the county that received the most was Rutland with 137 grants. Followed by Windsor and then Addison County. The dry hydrants, what they allow is it allows the trucks to go up to an adjacent stream or lake and fill up the pumper trucks without having to deal with debris, ice, or other environmental factors when moving their trucks into position. So the way that they often work, at least the way they're working in my county, is they'll be on the side of a bridge, and when the pumper truck comes up next to it, they can move it up, which moves the lower end into the water and allows them to pump from the top. So it rotates and allows them to pull water out of the river that way. It's actually a very efficient system. So, and I can provide more information, but I'm not an engineer, so I'll do my best if you have questions. And I believe the last section I have here, section 16 for the Vermont Historical Society, that's the Spalding Building in Barre. There we go. They're requesting $700,000 in funding for urgent repairs to the historic Spalding School Building in Barre, which has housed the Vermont Historical Society since 2000. It was constructed in 1891 and has served the Vermont Historical Society for 2 decades. But many of its systems are now deteriorating. They are looking at replacing and repairing the roof, especially the southwest entrance tower and central flat membrane roofing, installing a new foundation drain system, replacing outdated drains and improving stormwater management. And they're also looking to waterproof exposed foundation areas and restore masonry. It's very essential, critical work to maintain the building so it doesn't continue to fall apart. There's a lot of leaking, a lot of water damage that's currently happening. So these are repairs to make sure that the building will be around for another couple hundred years, hopefully. So that is all that I have for my section. I thank the Senate for listening to me, and I will yield to the chair of my committee, the Senator from Wyndham.
Senator from Orleans yields to the senator from Wyndham.
Thank you, Mr. President. Okay, so I will just touch on the next sheet, but not go into any detail at all unless somebody wants to. But these are, this is actually, you can think of this as, these are revenue items. This is dollars that were appropriated in previous capital bills, but that are not necessary now because either the project is finished or it didn't happen. The first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are the amounts that the administration provided, and then the lower items, those are items that the House found. They go through that. As you know, they have more time than we do, more people than we do, but we really appreciate their diligence in finding this money, because then it can be reallocated, which is what has happened. So if you want to go to the back, to the bottom line, so I'm going to focus on the green section now on the right. So the total capital funding for the 2 years, capital borrowing is appropriated through this, or approved through this bill at the $100 million that was recommended by the committee. There's a bond premium of $6.8 million, additional money from reallocations. That's the money that the House and the administration calculated. That's $5 million. So for a rough total of 111 million. I'll give you the whole amount. It's $111,965,288. That's the total capital funding. And then the total cash funding is proposed by the Senate to be $14,061,099. And the cash is the subject of much of our discussion between the Senate and the House. And so I want to point you to something in the policy. It's the section in the calendar. It's on page 1178, and it's a cash fund joint fiscal office report. And the reason for this is that we have the same conversations. I mean, I've just been here 3 years, but we're having the same conversations again this biennium that we had last biennium about what to pay for in cash and what to pay for in bonding. And the conversations are based on this 22 action by the treasurer, which the current treasurer still supports, having a cash fund. So my inclination was to similarly support the cash fund. So the Senate bill has a higher cash amount than the House version. But I think it's really important that we clarify and have another conversation about our use of cash and our use of bonding, because there are reasonable opinions on both sides. So a study is going to be done by JFO, giving us the advantages and disadvantages of cash and bonding. So hopefully we can have a more clear path going forward. And one of the fun parts of the Capitol bill is just that we hear from everybody. So I'm not going to give you the whole list of witnesses, but we hear from Agency of Administration, Agriculture, Community College of Vermont, Buildings and General Services. We hear from them a lot. We work Department of Corrections, Department of Environmental Conservation, Fish and Wildlife, Forest Parks and Recreation, State Treasurer, Conservation Districts, the fairs and field days, Vermont Judiciary, Housing and Conservation Board, military, state police, veterans home. So we really do overlap with the policy committees, and I think it would be helpful to do more integration of what we do versus what the other policy committees do. And that is my plan. And I think that is it for now. So I will sit down and wait for questions. Oh, I'm sorry. I am now unsitting. The committee voted out the Capital Bill 500 and recommends that the Senate concur with the committee's recommendation. Thank you.
Senator from Washington, Senator Watson, for the report of the Committee on Appropriations.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate Appropriations Committee reviewed the capital bill with the senator from Windham and had good conversation about it. We have no further suggestion of amendment, so we recommend concurrence on a vote of 7-0-0. Thank you.
The question is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Institutions? I believe we have a handout amendment from the Senator from Franklin, Senator Norris. Go ahead, Senator from Franklin.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is very brief. You should have draft 1.1 in front of you, H94, dated 5/1/2025 at 4:27 p.m. I got in kind of late last night. Senators Norris and Perchlik move that the report of the Committee on Institutions be amended in Section 19, fiscal 2026 and 27 capital projects. Fiscal year 2026 Appropriations Act, intent, authorizations in subsection C by striking out subsection 13 in its entirety and inserting in lieu thereof a new subdivision 13 to read as follows. 13, to the Department of Housing and Community Development for Hope Grove Recovery to establish a new recovery residence in St. Albans at an appropriations of $250,000. And that will do it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Franklin, Senator from Windham.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee, the Institutions Committee met this morning to review this amendment, and we concur with the amendment and urge the Senate to support it.
The question is, shall the recommendation of proposal of amendment of the Committee on Institutions be amended as moved by the Senator from Franklin and Washington? Are you ready for Senator from Chittenden?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm wondering if I might inquire the chair of institutions.
The chair is inquired of.
My question would be where and how this fits into the presentation that we just saw. Does it increase what we were looking at, or is money being moved, or any explanation would be welcome.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the question. This does not increase the funding. It just clarifies the recipient of the funding, and it is intended. It matches what was in the appropriations. This was something that came out of appropriations and came to our committee, and I am looking for the line item. 30. It's on line 39, which currently says DHCD. So that would be Department of Housing and Community Development, grant for recovery residence purchase. And you can see the amount to the right is $250,000, and you can see that it was put in by the Senate That came to us from appropriations, but the description of the site was not clear in the Senate bill. And so the two senators who are the sponsors worked together to clarify.
Thank you, much clearer, Mr. President.
Senator from Rutland.
Never mind. Never mind, sir. Mr. President.
Never mind.
Too early.
The question is, shall the recommendation of the proposal of amendment of the Committee on Institutions be amended as moved by the senators from Franklin and Washington? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you have amended the recommendation of the proposal of amendment of the Committee on Institutions. The question now is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Institutions as amended? Senator from Addison.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I inquire of the presenter of the Department of Public Safety section, which I believe is the senator from Orleans?
The senator from Orleans is interrogated.
Thank you. I had a question about the Essex County Courthouse because I had heard that there was a little concern with this related to the county government not keeping up with the repairs, that this is a county-owned building and the county was not, the county government, which we do have kind of county government light. Many of you in this room have heard my spiels about county governments over the last couple of years, and that they do have the authority to levy a tax in order to help maintain their facilities, and that they haven't been doing so. So I was looking through the bill to see if there was any language added to the bill to make it more clear to counties that they need to maintain their facilities, and wonder if you have more information on this situation. If the senator has more information on the situation, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. I didn't even catch that, the answer right. Mr. President, I believe that issue was raised very briefly in committee, but we did not dwell on it for very long. I'd be happy to get some more information for the senator at third reading. Or alternatively, I could, if the senator from Essex has more information, given that he's very, very, very familiar with this project, I'd be happy to yield that over to him if he has more information. Would the senator be happy to have more information on third reading if I'm able to obtain that?
I would be happy to hear from the senator from Essex, and I would also like the committee to look into this issue prior to third reading.
The senator from Orleans yields to the senator from Essex.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, it wasn't anything about maintenance of it. This is more of a modernization of the courthouse. It's the courthouse that was there was maintained as well as what it could be, but there was just no space to do anything. And so the county courthouse wasn't in any type of disrepair. What this is just a modernization of what Essex County is doing for their courthouse. The way that it was before, when the defendants would come in and meet with their attorneys, they were right next to the judges' chambers on a very, very thin wall. I mean, there was no privacy, there was no nothing. When the jurors were brought in, there was no place for them to sit as far as when they were doing jury duties and all that. What this really is doing is just adding, this is bringing this courthouse into compliance with all of what other courthouses are doing. And probably adding 25 years of modernization. And I'm guessing on that, but we know it's more than 20 because that's what the Capitol bill would do. But it's actually just modernizing and adding space to the courthouse. I can say this with clarity, none of what is going on here was because of lack of maintenance. It was just, it's modernizing the courthouse, adding spaces, adding jury rooms, adding security measures. There's now a sally port as far as to come in the judges' chambers where the judge's office worked. It was ground floor. And there was, I mean,
Okay.
his window was there.
I thank the senator.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate the information. I believe I have the floor, Mr. President.
Senator from Wyndham, the senator from Addison has the floor.
So I appreciate that this seems to be an upgrade to this building. I would like to have the committee review this situation about county courthouse maintenance and the requirements that counties levy taxes in order to maintain their courthouses and to make sure that counties are doing so. And if I could have that information prior to third reading, I would appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Wyndham.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to respond to the senator from Addison's request, and I think that is a great idea. It's the total response will not be available before third reading, but I'm certainly willing and to review the entire process. That's a very important process, and I appreciate the senator bringing it up.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I could, I'd like to interrogate the senator from Windsor regarding section 2.
The senator from Windsor is interrogated.
Specifically, line item number 4. Line item number 4 deals with the 3-acre rule. This is remediation, I believe, for in regards to the 3-acre rule. And this also relates to another line item in section 9. But I'm going to direct this specifically to the senator from Windsor. Given that the Rutland Fairgrounds remediation cost is roughly $3 million for one site alone, I'm curious if 2.4 million plus the other amount that's in section 9 is sufficient for the complete remediation of statewide 3-acre rule requirements.
May I have a recess, please?
Take a brief recess.
about Vermont. And I think this is one of those things where we get a big bang for our buck. The question I have for you is, what is the cost of each marker? Because I'm not sure $50,000 gets us very much, given they're made of iron, and I know how much is involved in placing them.
Gosh, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't recall, and I don't have it written down what the cost is per marker. I know that this is the amount that the House had put in, knowing that right now there are markers that were made to be paid to the foundry. But I can find out if that is the amount, that is the actual invoice.
I'd appreciate that. So all of us, when we ask for a historic marker, which we have done, we have one in Windsor County, which is being replaced at the moment. I'd just love to have a notion of what cost I'm asking for when I ask for an historic marker. Thank you very much.
Senator from Bennington.
And Mr. President, I do now have an answer to the senator from Windsor on the cost per historic marker, and it's $3,000.
Thank you. That is another big bang for our buck, given they're made of iron. Thank you.
Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. Might I inquire of the senator from Windsor?
The senator from Windsor is interrogated.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm wondering, I recognize that Section 3 is what I'm asking about, and I recognize that our recommendations here in the Senate are no different than the House, but they are different than the governor's recommend. And so I'm wondering if the senator could take us through some of those changes and what those allocations on line 20 through 26 are going to.
Yes. There are upgrades to those individual correction facilities. 20 is for upgrade and design of the correctional facilities. Right now, some of our correctional facilities do not have air conditioning.
Okay.
And so we are trying to rectify that. And 21 is more utility and upgrades in our correctional facilities. We do have some specific correction upgrades for Rutland, St. Johnsbury, and St. Albans, as well as Newport. But the 20 is for HVAC.
Okay. And for the AC and HVAC, given the sort of, this is a bit of a repeat from the previous senator's question, I'm wondering why we think that is going to come in at a lower cost than what the governor suggested, given we're actually seeing record inflation and tariff increases.
So once again, that's a timing issue more than anything else. These projects are going to take more than a year or two, so that's why we will have to claw back some of that money at some point.
That makes sense to me. Is there any money in this capital bill for the updated women's correctional facility?
Not as of yet.
I thank the senator.
Senator from Windham.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to elaborate on the question, the answer to the question, if I may.
You have the floor.
Which is that there is no funding in this capital bill in this 2-year period. There has been funding allocated previously, and there likely will be funding in the next capital bill, something that will be improved because of some policy suggestions that the House put in to this capital bill, is that we have better information of the funding that has already been approved and not spent, and the funding that's in the future. We don't have a 10-year, and we should really have a 10-year look at this, and we don't. So that is coming. Thank you.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. So as little Richard once said, good golly, Miss Molly, I hope this isn't too trivial, but I don't have any plans to interrogate anybody. I just want to make a very quick statement if I could. I'm sure it was just an oversight on the part of the administration and the other body, but I'm delighted to see that the $25,000 for the Lake Champlain Walleye Association was added. I would be remiss if I didn't have a fond memory or two of one-time Senator Dick Mazza from Grand Isle, who for decades served on this committee and was a big supporter of that. So I thank the committee.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Windsor.
May I propose my amendment at this time? Or are we?
No, we still have a vote to make before you propose your amendment, Senator. Are you ready for the question? Okay, the question is, shall the Senate propose to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Institutions as amended? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you have proposed to the House to amend the bill as recommended by the Committee on Institutions as amended. Senator from Windsor has an amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I realize I'm standing between all of us and food. So I'm going to really tell you why Windsor County is hungry for this amendment. What you're being handed out is a recommended amendment to the capital bill that does two specific things to address a long-standing inequity that has been occurring with the Southeast State Correctional Facility, which is in Windsor, Vermont. I want to thank the chair of Senate Institutions for her kindness in hearing us this morning on this amendment. This amendment comes to you with the support of all three members of the Windsor delegation. You may even remember last year a floor debate on this topic where the late esteemed senator from Bennington had strong perspectives on it. This is a long-standing issue that we're hoping to address. The former Windsor prison site back in 2017 was mothballed. It no longer was being used as a correctional facility. At that point, after being used since the 1930s, since 2017, it has been laying to do essentially nothing of real use. It is a tax, it does not allow the town of Windsor to have the tax abundance that they expect. It's a valuable piece of property. The site has, from an appraisal in 2018, we know 27 structures, and as is the value is $1.1 million as of those 2018 figures. We know that the maintenance of this facility now costs the state as much as $200,000 per year, and we expect that that has increased since the last figures we saw. We've had multiple reports on this topic asking for the state to have a decision made about the use of it. We had back in 2021 a report that was done that if it's appropriate, I'd like to read the concluded piece from that report.
Okay.
The legislator needs to appropriate additional funding for this site. Outside of the present maintenance funding, they need to support the demolition of unwanted or blighted structures on this site. The legislature needs to decide on the disposition of the property. The lack of clarity on whether the legislator wants to maintain ownership, sell or lease the property makes redevelopment efforts difficult given the uncertainty. The existing statutory provisions, as stated above, add to this uncertainty. So what we know from multiple reports is that the state not doing anything with that land but holding it for some hypothetical use in the future means that we can't build the housing that we need in Windsor. We can't find a developer or a partner because of that uncertainty. And it's also not being used by the state for any purpose besides the occasional canine training is what I've heard. The people of Windsor are frustrated. They've been waiting since 2017. They've proposed ideas and they have been met with, unfortunately, study after study. So what does this amendment do? The amendment, I'm also going to ask to be divided. I'm going to ask for us to vote on 23A and 23B separately because I heard from folks that they may support 23A but not necessarily 23B. So I will call for that. Section, as you see in your handout, 23A states that on or before December 15th, 2025, that the BGS commissioner has to provide an actionable plan to the Senate Committee on Institutions and House. We also want that plan to be developed using all of those great previously mentioned reports I talked about, and that they identify from those previous reports an actionable plan, and that if they don't provide an actionable plan, we'd like to know why they didn't choose one from the many reports that we've seen. So that's the first section. I think that's our easiest ask. That's saying, can we please come up with something so the people of Windsor no longer have to sit with this property being unused and untapped as an opportunity? And then the second section, 23B, asks that on January 15th, 2026, because we don't know if this plan will happen and what will move forward, that the property be transferred to the town of Windsor so that they can move forward and make a decision about that property. They have also asked, when we spoke to the town manager in Windsor, he specifically asked that we make sure that the state removes the property that is unsafe and blighted. We know that it will cost a large amount of money to develop this property, and that delay without funding would mean that it would fall on the town. So we also asked them that there be an appropriation of $2 million that go with the transfer of this property to the town of Windsor. I really do want to thank the committee for hearing us. My understanding with the testimony that we took very briefly this morning was the main apprehension to this was that a process wasn't followed to have it be heard in the Capitol bill earlier. Our apologies on that front. We had some capacity issues with legislative counsel. And then the second point we heard was that there needed to be more testimony and more information. And I asked senators to please vote if you feel comfortable with an action plan, at least being put forward to vote for that first piece, because we've heard about this issue since 2017. We've debated this issue. It's been too long, too little to wait. And as one of the representatives from Windsor noted to me, I wanted to come up with a euphemism to give you at the end to really lay my point forward. And what I came up with was sitting on the fence too long gives you splinters. And what the representative from Heartland noted was, these are barbed wire fences. So we've been waiting a long time. So sitting on barbed wire fences no longer is what the town of Windsor would like. And I am happy to tell you the vote that was in the committee or defer. We had one vote in favor of this amendment from the committee, 3 opposed, and there was 1 absent. So it did not pass committee, just so folks know that. Thank you, and I hope for a vote in favor and to have the Section 23A voted on and Section 23B voted on separately.
Senator from Wyndham.
Thank you, Mr. President. We did receive this amendment in a different form yesterday, and our committee was able to have a special meeting to consider this amendment and the other amendment, and we did not favorably we voted against this amendment and urged the body to also vote against this amendment. I feel the frustration of the Windsor delegation. We have to balance that with making good decisions, and this is a very significant decision and action. The state currently is required to get full market value when we transfer a property. So that's something we had talked about last year, that in certain situations, such as municipalities, it might be better to have a process that would not, would allow the municipalities to either get it at a low cost or possibly no cost. But we have not worked out that language yet, or we definitely need testimony from the town of Windsor. It's critical. They're happy to have them in the next few weeks. We have extra time. Regarding the allocation, the $2 million, we had a tough time sticking to the funding that we had allocated. So the $2 million is not available. So it's another reason I would urge the Senate to reject this amendment.
Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I might inquire of the presenter of the amendment.
The presenter of the amendment is interrogated.
The second section strikes me as you noted, less likely to pass. I'm wondering, in the first instance, there's reference to several reports that have been done, completed, and not acted upon. And I'm wondering what the thinking is, because it calls for an actionable plan. And I'm wondering if the thinking is from Ledge Council that calling it an actionable plan somehow will prevent the repetition of the cycle?
I thank the president for that question. That was our intent when we drafted it with Legislative Council, was we are not interested in another study, another report. We want a plan. So yes, I would describe, I believe you properly described the purpose of that language.
Thank you. And I thank the senator. And if I could ask one question of the chair of institution.
The chair is interrogated.
Thank you. I'm wondering, I heard the chair recount the vote, and it was negative on the amendment as a whole, as I understood it. I'm wondering if the chair could speak to the committee's thoughts on the first instance.
Thank you, Mr. President. We didn't specifically, it wasn't proposed as two different decisions. My opinion on it is that this is something that we would ask for information and confer with the staff, with the agency, before making this requirement.
Thank you. I thank the senator. I do remember the late Senator Sears' comments on this problem, and I understand the frustration and the desire to break through. I am not confident that requiring another plan will produce that. I think more optimistic for me are the comments from the chair of the committee that she would be willing to take testimony in the following weeks on this issue and work toward an actionable result. So with that said, Mr. President, I can't vote for the second instance, and I'm not convinced that the first instance will get us where we need to go, but I do thank the chair for her willingness to take this on if it does not pass. Thank you.
Are you ready for the question? Senator from Essex.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've heard in this chamber over and over and over again, and I tend to believe it, that there needs to be a process and something of getting rid of such a state, forcing an issue on a very valuable piece of property, no matter what town it is in, that's owned by the state, is just something that you don't do. I think that this is going to take not just until next year, it's going to take some very thoughtful work and bring in all the stakeholders as we move forward. And nobody of them have been consulted. And I think that the reason why there hasn't been follow-up on the actionable plans is that a lot of those plans were punts down the road. They weren't really, there wasn't really a clear idea about what's to go on with that property, or whether even the state wanted to even sell the property. I would urge both sections of this amendment to be struck down and to let the committees do the work as what we are meant to do in the Senate. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are you ready for the question? The question has been divided, so we will take Section 23 first, and the question is, shall the Senate proposal of amendment be amended as offered by the senator from Windsor and others in the first instance only? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Nay. The nays appear to have it. The nays do have it. Motion has failed. Question now is, shall the Senate proposal of amendment be amended as offered by the senator from Windsor and others in the second instance? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Nay. The nays appear to have it. The nays do have it. Motion fails. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've ordered third reading of H 494. Senator from Chittenden.
Mr. President, it has been a longish morning, so I will ask that we stop our work here, and if I might make a motion to accomplish that. It strikes me that we may have an additional motion, so I will defer and leave it to you to close us out.
Senator from Bennington.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise on what we call a point of personal privilege.
Hold, please.
Might be the wrong time.
Yes. Senator from Bennington, if you could be seated, and Senator from Chittenden, if you could offer a motion that we pass over or delay action on the rest of the orders of the day so we can gavel out.
Thank you. I would move at this time that we pass over the remaining orders of the day and leave the orders of the day and move toward adjournment.
That completes the orders of the day. Senator from Bennington.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I apologize for rising on the point of personal privilege. It's short and it does have a lawyer joke, so bear with me. So I've heard due process talked about a lot over the past few weeks, and my cold lawyer's heart grew 3 sizes when I heard that phrase elevated to the status of a rallying cry. It has been said that due process is the cornerstone of our justice system, the promise we make to every person who stands before the law. This week, that promise was kept, and we saw that even lawyers and judges can be heroes. But I rise in warning. Due process is not a law unto itself. It is a question to ask. It is a question to ask when a law is enforced. The question of what process is due, usually in very difficult circumstances. At those times, it is easy to fall back on procedures and regulations and policies, to simply read what is written and not think about the substance behind the process. And if I may read from a text, Mr. President.
You may.
The sad truth is that most evil is done by people who never make up their minds to be or do either good or evil. That was Hannah Arendt. Vermont has made up its mind. Vermonters know that the process to become a citizen should embody our nation's promise of freedom. And we know it should not be corrupted into a dishonest, undue process that walks our friends, our neighbors, our guests, our workers into jail. So we must resist the temptation to let due process alone define our actions. Injustice often thrives not through overt malice, but through unthinking acts of power without reflection. Instead, we must ask if every step we take is guided by the principles of fairness, liberty, and humanity. That is the process that is due. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are there, Senator from Chittenden?
I would move that the comments from the senator from Bennington be journalized.
Senator from Chittenden has moved that the Senator from Bennington's remarks be journalized. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we will journalize the senator's remarks. John, I'm going to do the confirmations if that is appointments for the conference committee. We've received H 493. We'll start with we're fine. 488. The transportation bill back from the House, which informs us that they've refused to concur in the Senate proposal of amendment and have appointed a committee of conference. On behalf of the Committee on Committees, the following senators are appointed to the Committee on Conference on behalf of the Senate. Senator from Lamoille, Senator Westman, Senator from Washington, Senator Perchlik, The senator from Windsor, Senator White. That's a big one. H493, we've received back from the House, which informs us that they have refused to concur in the Senate proposal of amendment and have appointed a committee of conference. On behalf of the Committee on Committees, the following senators are appointed to the Committee on Conference on behalf of the Senate. Senator from Washington, Senator Perchlik, Senator from Lamoille, Senator Westman, Senator from Chittenden Southeast, Senator Lyons. Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pending further announcements, I would move that we stand in adjournment until 9:30 a.m. Tuesday, May 6th.
Are there any further announcements? Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Finance will meet at 1:50. Get your lunch and bring it to committee.
Are there further announcements? Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. Much in that vein, I would ask committee members in the Government Operations Committee to also get their lunch, and in 10 minutes, we will begin.
Further announcements? Senator from Bennington.
Mr. President, the Senate Education Committee will meet at 1:55.
Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, the senator from Chittenden Central has moved that the Senate stand in adjournment until 9:30 a.m. Tuesday, May 6th of 2025. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we'll stand in adjournment until 9:30 a.m. Tuesday, May 6th of 2025.